Hello, and welcome to this video that is a reminder about how cosines work. I recognize that a lot of college students had worked with trigonometry back in high school, but for many students, it's been several years since they've had the opportunity to think about trigonometry, and in particular cosines. As a reminder, cosine addresses where we are on the x-axis inside of this unit circle. We call it a unit circle because it is centered around the number 1. It has a radius of 1. As you can see, this would be the 0 point on the x-axis, and we go out to the point 1, 0. So we haven't moved up on the y, that's why we have a 0. And we have moved across on the x-axis, that's why we have a 1. If you can imagine that we have this arrow, and a superimposed arrow right on top of it, there would be a 0 angular difference between those two arrows. They'd be right on top of each other. And the cosine of 0 degrees would in fact be 1. If we now take another extreme example and we go from the 0-degree angle to a 90-degree angle, which I'm outlining here, we would have a cosine of 0. As you can see, the 0 coordinate appears here, and this pair of coordinates, we have the 0 for the x value. It's important to look at some intervening values. Let's take, for example, the cosine of 30 degrees. Basically, when we're asking for the cosine of 30 degrees, we're asking for the length of the x-axis here at 30 degrees. We can think of it almost as an x-intercept. And if we were to go along the 30-degree angle here and create a simple drop line that drops down to the x-axis here, we would be at 0.866. If we were to take instead a 45-degree angle and we drop down from there, we would be at 0.707. If we take the 60-degree angle and drop down from there, we would be at 0.5. Now, what's interesting about those three numbers is that if you square them, you wind up with, for example, the 0.866 squared winds up to being 0.75. And the 0.707 squared turns out to be a 0.5. And the 0.5 squared turns out to be 0.25. So we get 0.25, 0.5, and 0.75 as the squared values of the cosine. And this has an important connection to the r values from correlation, where we would often square the r such that we would get r squared. So a take-home message then is that there's a relationship between cosine and the r statistic. In fact, correlation is cosine. Thanks for listening.